Lincolnshire. Now, organisers of the first Hull Marathon have been responding to criticism of the race following complaints from some runners. Stewarding problems sent a small number of runners the wrong way, while others complained about a lack of signs. The organisers have promised to improve for next year, as our sports reporter Simon Clark explains.
They were off and ahead of them 26 miles and some 385 yards. But this first running of a marathon from the city since the 1980s was not without its teething problems. There were complaints about a lack of stewarding and course markers. Some runners were sent the wrong way and ended up doing fewer than 26 miles. Experienced runner Jonathan Frost finished fifth. He enjoyed it, but identified deficiencies.
I think the main thing was the lack of marshals. Obviously, you've got a 26-mile route. You need a lot of marshals to cover that. And I was lucky enough to be running with a couple of runners who knew the course. They'd been around it before. But there was a few twists and turns around the Hessel Road sort of area where it was confusing as to where you're going. Also, the mile markers. I think that people who are competitive runners, they like to know how far they've done to be able to time themselves.
The organiser Carl Jackson accepts that in this first year there were problems, issues he believes can be rectified for future races.
There were always going to be unknowns. Things weren't going to work the way they should have done. Things weren't going to work the way they could have done until we actually see it in action. Mistakes were made, and as part of the review that I'm going through now, it is to address every one of those mistakes and to make sure it never happens again.
Check it steady, mate. You've got oncoming traffic.
The marathon was officially licensed, but issues raised by this race will have to be corrected before another is granted next year.
I don't have a regret about the licence being issued. I just wish we'd been involved much earlier. In fact, throughout. I was only asked to provide a referee, and the referee and myself, I wasn't invited, but I went, and the starter were the only people who were qualified officials.
Yet despite the shortcomings and the drizzle, most runners were happy to be part of the Hull Marathon.
Well, Simon is close to the marathon finishing line at the moment. Is there any possibility that these complaints then could actually stop the marathon from being run again next year?
Well, there's a possibility, but I think it's for the licensing authorities, the local authority, the police, to be satisfied that safety is going to be all right next year on public highways, on the footpaths and things like that. My main concern on the race was when the lead runners and the rear runners were running counter to one another. So that for me was an issue that needs to be addressed. Now, meetings and briefings are underway already to try and rectify these situations for next year, and they're set to last all week.
Simon, thank you very much.